For those of you that don't know, my name is Nassim. I'm the head of immigration services here at Working International Visas. And we've got a team of 10 licensed immigration advisors and support staff. And tonight I've got two of my colleagues with me, Zini and Hamneet.
Thank you, Nassim. Hi, everyone. My name is Hamneet, and I'm a licensed immigration advisor. And I've been working since 2015 as a full licensed immigration advisor. Happy to have you all here. Have a lovely evening. I hope this webinar is as informative as our last videos were. We will try and cover as many questions in later the webinar after discussing what the specific requirements are for this.
Thanks, Hamneet. And yes, so tonight we're going to talk about the new 2021 resident visa in a little bit more detail. So we've covered the eligibility criteria in our previous webinars. So if you haven't already, please go back and watch those. INZ has noted that this category will provide a residence pathway for up to 165,000 migrants, including more than 5,000 health and aged care workers and about 9,000 primary industry, so quite a lot, and more than 800 teachers. So although Immigration New Zealand hasn't released the full policy yet, we have further information from a webinar that was held by Immigration New Zealand last Friday. And tonight we're going to clarify some of those additional queries that we've received. So before we get into it, we will be talking about the following, I guess, broad topics. Number one, who's eligible? We have had a lot of questions, you know, I am this person, did I make it, did I qualify? So we'll go into a little bit more detail about that. The application process and the current timeframes that we have been provided with and we're aware of, how we can help you. And then we'll also go through more very specific questions that we've received so far as part of a Q&A. And if there's any additional time that we've got available, we'll try to answer some of the questions that you guys might be chatting in the comment box well, it's on my right. I don't know where it is on your computer. So Zini.
Yeah, thank you, Nassim. So yeah, as we know, so there are about 230,000 temporary visa holders in the country. So out of this, a huge cohort of people will be eligible to apply. Let's look back at history a little bit. So even in the last 5 years alone, the general trend has been that it gets harder and harder to qualify. So the government releasing this new category is really the biggest announcement from Immigration New Zealand in a long time, possibly ever. And we know this is really born out of a very unique situation that New Zealand has been in over the last 2 years with COVID, with border restrictions in place. And the intention of this policy, this category, is really to provide certainty to migrants that have been contributing to New Zealand. And we know from immigration that there is a very specific focus on skills and employment and in securing the workforce. Hamneet, would you be able to just quickly take us through the eligibility criteria again?
Yes, thank you, Zini. And for everyone, I understand that Zini's voice is a little cracking, I think, and in the background. Zini, can you please say how best we can do this? But what Zini was trying to say here is how immigration has been literally challenging in the terms from the previous years. And this is a one-time opportunity that we have got to qualify a lot of migrants under this new residence program 2021. So the first point of the eligibility is that applicant must meet certain criteria as of 29 September 2021. You might want to look at my previous videos posted on the respective Facebook pages or pre-recorded webinars. You would see that there is specific requirements that the clients need to meet in order to be eligible for this new residence program. One of the criteria is actually to be in New Zealand, living in New Zealand, settled in New Zealand, and must be working in an occupation which is under scarce list. I usually term it as S3, which is settled, scarce list, and also skilled, working in a skilled environment and having a skilled pay rate to be eligible for. So these are the basic criteria to actually meet for the new residence program. It's not written and, it is or. either any migrant who is in New Zealand meeting any of these three criteria can be able to qualify for new residence program either in December or in March 2021. Please, I've got a lot of questions with regards to this as well, that whether I need to still hold a visa, my visa expiring in on so-and-so date, do I still have to, keep continuing having the work visas? And the answer to this in a broader spectrum is yes. You always need to have eligible visa in order to qualify not only for this visa category, but also you need to have a valid visa to stay in the country lawfully. It doesn't mean that your residence is in process. That doesn't mean that your work visa will automatically be extended. You still need to apply for your eligible visa. There is a list of visas that we last video, but we will be going to sliding the slides, which will give you a list of eligible visas which the applicant needs to be on. There is post-study work visa, talent accredited visa. Sorry, I've got a paper, I'm going to read it through it, which is essential skills, talent, LTSSL, silver fern, religious work visa, South Island contribution work visa. All these are list of things which will actually give you eligibility to apply under this category. So you need to meet one of the criteria. Second, you always need to have eligible visas. That's the eligibility criteria. Yeah.
Thanks, Hamni. Looks like Zinni's back, and hopefully with better sound. Maybe we can do a quick check before we jump into a lot of this other very heavy information.
Yeah.
So as
can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can. Perfect. That works.
Perfect.
Right. So Hamni's talked about how you need to hold an eligible visa to remain eligible. And I did see someone ask a question, oh, well, what about if you're offshore? Do I qualify? How does that work? So Zinni, did you want to maybe, maybe we'll talk about critical workers a little bit later. And maybe you can start with a little bit more information about what that settled, skilled and scarce means. So Hamni battled off a very, very long list of eligible visas, which is what we understand are the only visas that will be eligible to apply. If you don't hold one of those visas, despite, I think, the efforts of the Green Party, additional visa types will not be included. So if you're on a student visa, it's not going to be added. So now that we know the visas that definitely you need to have held, can you go into a little bit more detail about the settled, which was the first criteria that was noted as the next thing that people needed? Eligible visa, and then, so one of them was settled.
Yeah. So I think Immigration New Zealand recognised that lots of people have been here in New Zealand for a very long time. They've been contributing to the economy. So one of the criteria that people can use to meet this new resident visa category is being settled. And under this category, being settled is a very simple definition. So it means you must have lived in New Zealand for 3 or more years. So the last 3 or more years, meaning you have arrived in New Zealand on or before 29th of September 2018. And within the last 3 years, you have spent a minimum of 821 days in New Zealand. So I think that's 3/4 or 75% of the time in the last 3 years. Most people would probably meet that, having been here at least the last 2 years because of the border restrictions. So we know lots of people will be able to meet that through that criteria. If you're unsure about the dates that you've been in New Zealand, we can always check on your behalf. Part of our eligibility assessment is that we obtain your travel movement from INZ, so we'll be able to calculate the dates that you've been here. The second criteria is the skilled criteria. So skilled has lots of definitions, but in the last few years, Immigration New Zealand has used the wage as an indication of skilled. So under this category, if you're earning $27 or more on the 29th of September 2021, you may be eligible. So this is the median wage on the 29th of September 2021. We have had some questions about median wage going up in the future, whether that would impact it. But as we understand, it's as long as you've got $27 on the 29th of September, you should be fine. The third criteria is scarce. So as mentioned before, it's really the intention of the policy is to retain the skills in New Zealand. So the government sees values in those of you that have been working in an occupation that's considered scarce in New Zealand. And there's a very specific list, there's a very big list of occupations. And on the screen now, you'll see that it includes jobs that are on the LTSSL, so the long-term skill shortage list, jobs that require occupational registration in the health or education sector. So for example, a registered nurse or a teacher, and personal care or other critical health workers, and of course the specified primary sector jobs. So we went through a little bit in more detail in our past webinars, so do check that out. If you believe that you're eligible, based on your occupation, you can contact us and we can always check. So yeah. The other thing I just wanted to mention is, so those of you that are eligible, you can be considered the principal applicant. Principal applicant in a resident application, you can include partners and not partners, one partner, and dependent children. So that's really good news. And it includes people that are offshore as well. So we know there's been so many of you guys that have been, split across countries, across shores. So this is a good news for you guys. You can include your partner, your dependent child. What we know is you need to meet the regular requirements of partnership and dependent child. So in terms of partnership, it means you needed to have proof that you've been living together for at least 12 months or more. And dependent child, just briefly, the definition is they are single, they have no children of their own, and they're financially dependent on you. So straightforward criteria, but for partnership, because of the distance and being split for at least 2 years for a lot of you, there's a lot more information and paperwork that you will need to provide to satisfy Immigration New Zealand's requirements. Yep.
Thanks, Zinni. And I think it is really, really important that if you are wanting to apply under these instructions, that you understand how you're eligible. So as Zinni said, we can always do that first assessment. We do it for free. It's online. I don't know if the link is being shared or if you've already filled it out. And then we'll go through the process of getting into a little bit more nitty gritty and saying, all right, yes, this is, you do meet those, one of the 3 criteria to be eligible. And if you don't, once we've said we think you qualify and we've done those further assessments, we'll refund the fee because, we're not in the business of taking your money if you don't qualify. So if you do want us to check, you can always get in touch. I think it's also worth noting that even though Zinni's just talked about family members overseas, they're going to have to meet the health and character requirements as well. So initially the government's announcement suggested that that the process was streamlined, and it felt like they said that you didn't need to meet any requirements, but it was clarified by Immigration New Zealand that actually you do. So the health and character requirements need to be met, but perhaps they're going to be a little bit more lenient, a little bit more understanding with regards to how you demonstrate that. So for yourself, as a principal applicant, it might look like you don't need to provide something else, for example, because you have recently, but for family members that never have, they're going to have to go through that process. So yeah, it's still a stringent character test to ensure the security of the immigration program, but not necessarily having to supply something that you did 5 seconds ago, which you normally have to with residence applications. Now, the other thing that was important to note is that with regards to medicals, the limited medical certificates and the chest ray certificates may be required for some people. but Immigration New Zealand, if they need to, will request that further information as part of that application process. So for anyone who's had a health issue in the past, it might potentially come up again on as part of this 2021 residence visa process. And also anybody who has had any character issues, you may still require a character waiver to meet the policy requirements. So we're going to go through some of the common questions that we've received, because it feels like we get lots of very, very specific questions, like, what about me? Does this apply to me? So we thought we might do some very specific questions and answers. So we can start off with the first one. There has been questions about age and whether or not you need to meet English language requirements. Hamnik, did you want to let us know what Immigration New Zealand confirmed in the webinar?
Yes.
Oh, last week now, yeah.
Yes. So Immigration last webinar, they confirmed that there is no age and English requirements specifically for this new residence program 2021. However, please guys don't get confused with the requirements set out for skilled migrant category and residence from work. This is still a separate category. There will be still requirements to meet as per the age and the English requirement. It is only they have kind of waived off for this particular category to help migrants to settle down quickly.
Yeah, and I think that's really, really important to note, because there's always been an age requirement under the skilled instructions, and normally there's an English language requirement, but it's been waived in this instance. We're not quite sure if it will be waived for all dependents overseas as well, but we have an expectation that because it's not required of the principal applicant, that it shouldn't be required for family members either. So, Hamid, did you want to tell us, there's obviously other categories of residents that you've said that we've had, they've got applications in process or they've considered. You clarified that if they have an application under those instructions, the same rules apply, correct? It's only if you're applying under the 2021 residence visa that age and language is not required, correct?
That's right. That's right.
Does everybody hear that? So if you're over 56 and you are currently on an eligible visa, you've just won the lottery, you qualified for residence when it wasn't otherwise an option. And for those of you who dislike doing English language tests, it's a common question, do I really have to? I don't want to do it. Yay, you don't have to do it. So I think that's a win. So the next question was, if we are in New Zealand on the 29th of September and on the date we apply, as in for the 2021 residence visa, would we have to remain in the country the whole time while they allocate and process our application, or can we leave? Emily, do you want to tackle that one again?
Yeah, at this stage, we don't have any clarification on from immigration perspective that whether they will be assessing people who are currently offshore or have left the country after lodging the residence. But it's my personal recommendation that do not leave the country. It is even harder to get yourself inside when there are so many restrictions at the borders, when it's even harder to get the MIQ. I would suggest just hang in there. We are just a little step ahead. Let's get your residence sorted and then you can visit to the countries.
Okay, so yes, please don't leave the country. Zinni, if my current work visa is expiring, do I need to renew it?
Yes. So the normal requirements still apply. So the normal requirements is anyone that's in New Zealand, you need to stay lawfully here. And to stay lawfully, you need a valid visa at all times. So if your visa is expiring soon, we do encourage you to renew it. And the other point that I wanted to make is if you are eligible for this resident visa, you need to continue holding an eligible visa. So if you're no longer holding an eligible visa, you may no longer qualify for this residence.
Yeah, and that was something that was specifically mentioned by Immigration New Zealand on Friday. So if you currently hold, or you did hold an eligible visa on the 29th, please don't swap onto an ineligible one because you might have then lost your pathway under these instructions. So I know that we did mention this briefly, but Hamnet, can you answer, if my partner is overseas, can I include them in my application?
Yes, you can include partners in this application, in this new residence program, but at the same time, you have to meet the genuine, stable, and credible partnership information. There will be a lot included in terms of explaining immigration, that how you've still maintained the genuine relationship. I think you might want to contact that at the personal front to get into in more details and see if you actually qualify for it or not, but you can include.
Brilliant. So sticking with partners, we had this question asked many times. If I'm on a partnership-based visa, so that's partner of a New Zealander, partner of a worker, partner of a student, do I qualify under the 2021 residence instructions? Zinni?
Yeah. So partnership visa isn't on the list of eligible visas that we've gone through earlier. But if you're a partner of a New Zealander, then you would potentially have a pathway under that category. But if you're a partner of a worker, maybe your partner would qualify. So maybe they are on an eligible visa. And if so, you can be included as a secondary applicant. Yeah.
Brilliant. So even if you don't qualify, you might qualify under the basis of your relationship with an eligible individual. So we also had a lot of questions about adult children. One was, my child is age 25. Can I still include them in this application? Hamnet?
Yes. For residence application, as we know that there is a requirement up to age 24, you can include your dependent, but I think this is specifically, but we're still waiting for the policy to be released. And I think I can then give a definite and accurate answer to this question. But people who have actually submitted the expression of interest and have included their kids 17 years or older, they can qualify for the December batch residence application. For people who will qualify in March, we are still waiting for the definite policy to be released in order to confirm whether you can include your 25-year-old child fully dependent on you or not.
Yeah, and I think one of the bits of information that was advised is for those adult children that can sort of qualify, they actually have to make their own application once they've been identified as being eligible. So potentially, if you've got an adult child and they are eligible, you might be paying one application fee and then the child might be paying a separate application fee. So we had some questions around what the process looks like. Zinni, if I've already submitted an application under the skilled migrant category or residence from work, so for those that have got a work to residence under LTSSL or the accredited employer instructions, will my application be prioritized under these new instructions? Will this new application be allocated based on my previous application date and where I might, sit in the current queue?
Yeah. So from what we know, if you have submitted an SMC or residence from work application on or before the 29th of September, you can apply for this new category if you are eligible for it under phase 1. So phase 1 opens from the 1st of December 2021. So I think that is the way of immigration prioritizing you guys, because the rest of the people can only apply from the 1st of March next year. In terms of whether there are further priority allocation criteria, what we know is in this new category, in this new queue, it will be allocated on a first in, first served manner. So irrespective of when your previous application was submitted, even if it was submitted 1 year ago, 2 years ago, it will be processed on a basis of first in, first served. So yeah, for some people, it might make sense for you to stay in your original queue because that potentially might be faster. So everyone is slightly different.
Brilliant, thanks. So Immigration New Zealand noted that they will contact those that are eligible by the end of October. And so that's 11 days away. So if that's the case, Hamnet, do I still need to submit an application if I'm eligible for this 2021 residence?
Absolutely. Please do not assume that they will automatically shift your current application to the December one. We have to apply for it. There will be certain online portal that will be introduced soon. I don't know, soon? Immigration says soon, so I'm saying soon. But yes, it will not be automatically transferred. We have to submit an application.
Cool. Oh, excuse me. So what happens if someone doesn't apply for this residency visa and they wait to be processed in the other queue? Will that application be delayed due to this new category being prioritized? Zinni, do you want to answer that, because you were talking about the priorities earlier?
Yeah. So if you submitted an application, it will stay in that original queue. And what we know is that immigration in the webinar last Friday, they have said that they encourage everyone to submit under this new criteria. So yeah, so if you choose not to submit under this new category, immigration has said that there will still be resources allocated to process the original queue, but how much resource we don't really know. We know that with this new category, they have made it more simple, they have made it more streamlined, so it might be faster, but again, come check with us because everyone's situation will be very different.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that was really, really important to note is that Immigration New Zealand said that, you know, even though they're encouraging you to apply under the new instructions, don't withdraw any application that's currently in process. Leave them both there, and only if you've got one approved to then withdraw the other. Now, we don't know if that means you're going to have to be paying extra fees. That was something that INZ couldn't confirm, but I think it's, if you have lodged something, at least you've lodged something. You just need to be, you know, possibly considering whether or not you lodge a subsequent application. But for anyone who hasn't submitted under any of the other, like the residence from work or the SMC categories, then definitely you want to be sort of prepared and submit under the new 2021 resident visa. So I guess following on from the thing about the cost, what are the fees going to be for this application, Hamneet?
The system being finalized, we don't know yet. We are still waiting for the confirmation, but I would suggest we are looking around 1,800 to 3,000 New Zealand dollars. And I would suggest all the viewers whosoever wants to prepare for the residence application under either of the categories, just be prepared. Just get your funds ready, and it's always good to be prepared. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good advice, to actually be prepared, because we have been told that they're obviously going to assess them in lodgement order. So if you can't lodge because you haven't sorted an application fee, that might mean that you have to wait longer for your outcome. So now this is a very, very common question that we've received, was, do I have to pay for this new visa if I've already submitted a residence visa under another category that's already with Immigration New Zealand? Zinni?
Yes, this is a very interesting question and applies to lots of people. So if you have submitted a visa application under another category, you would have paid for that category. We have heard different things from Immigration New Zealand, from the minister himself. Some were saying you only need to top up fees. Some were saying you potentially don't have to pay a fee up front. So I think at this stage, what is safe to say is it's not confirmed yet. So like Hamneet said, it's best for you to prepare, because if you need to submit a fee up front, at least you have those ready.
Yeah. And I guess there was also some discussion from INZ about if you do have to pay 2 lots of fees, that there would be some kind of a refund available, but they also couldn't clarify what that would look like or how long it would take. So just also to keep in the back of your mind. Moving on to one of these other questions that we got. Oh yeah, and surprisingly about refunds. If I apply for this new resident visa and it gets processed before my other lodged residence application, will I get a refund on the original application? Hamneet?
As you said, Naseem, I would just repeat the same. Do not withdraw your residence application. immigration did mention that there is a possible refund. We would recommend not to withdraw until you have a decision in one of the either application. Once you've got residence approved, I think then you will be good to process the refund for the other application remaining to be decided. But until then, I would not suggest to withdraw anything.
Absolutely. So the other questions that we got were all around the so the process and the timelines, and there still seems to be a little bit of confusion as to when people can apply. So the 2021 resident visa is going to be open for applications in 2 phases. So the first group, as mentioned earlier, will be able to apply from the 1st of December, and everybody else who qualifies, which will be phase 2, can apply on the 1st of March next year. So just to recap, those that can apply from the 1st of December are those who are eligible if they've already got a residence application in process with Immigration New Zealand under the skilled migrant category and the residence from work categories, and they were submitted before the 29th of September. So we got the announcement on the 30th, but the rules applied from the day before. Or you had submitted a skilled migrant category expression of interest and have included your dependent children in that expression of interest where they're aged 17 years or older. So you've either got to have the application already lodged, irrespective of the age of your children, or you didn't have a residence application lodged, but you did have an expression of interest that was submitted and you had adult children included in that application. So from the 1st of March, everybody else will be able to apply that's eligible. So that would be people who might have been on a work to residence visa but hadn't lodged their residence from work yet, or those that were on essential skills and hadn't submitted an expression of interest, or those who are on a post-study work visa and were magically caught up in the bunches of eligible visas who also might not have lodged an expression of interest. So depending on your specific circumstances, you'll be phase 1 or phase 2. And for both phase 1 and phase 2, regardless of the date that it opens that you can apply, the last day to submit an application under these instructions will be the 31st of July next year. So how long have we been talking? Is everyone tired? I see that there's a whole bunch of questions in the corner. I'm going to try to really quickly look to see if there's any that we can very quickly answer. Oh my God, oh, they're just all like running. So if someone's asking, do we still need to submit an EOI? No. If you didn't already have it submitted, don't submit one now if you qualify for this new visa. There's no point. So don't waste the EOI fee, just hold on to it for now. Someone's saying somebody else had a good question. What is it?
I saw a question about whether it's a permanent residence or residence visa. So I think what we know is that it is a residence visa. So once you've had this residence granted, after 2 years, you can apply for permanent residence.
Yeah, so that's a good point. And so that's why I think it's important, based on your specific sort of circumstances, you work out what's best for you. So we've got a lot of clients that have work to residence visas that were obtained under the pre-October 2019 instructions, and they might have an automatic pathway to permanent residency. So in your case, it might make sense to say, I'll forget about the 2021 resident visa. I'm just going to go with my original pathway because I will be 2 years closer to permanent residency. I don't have to then wait for a further 2 years to qualify from residence to permanent residence. And I guess that kind of takes me to the next thing, is about how we can help you. So I think what's important to note is that with so many people that are going to be applying, you need to figure out what you're going to do, how you qualify and get prepared. The fact that Immigration New Zealand said it was going to be on a first in, best dressed kind of approach means that you really want to be prepared so that when the time comes, we can press the button and submit it. So if you want to check your eligibility, we do have the free online tool. But it is really important that you provide the right information in that. Otherwise, if we come back and say no, but you actually do, it's because we've just relied on that initial information. So if you do have your e-visa, please attach that. I noticed lots of people have stated they were on visa, but the attachment was for a different one. Things like that. That makes it easier for us to do that first check. Once we've done that, and if you do qualify, we will be in touch and we'll invite you to for us to assist you. And we've, as a company, our director has decided that it's supposed to be an easier visa. It should be an exciting time for us to be able to help everybody get residence in New Zealand. And so our services are just going to start from $18.95. The first payment will only be $350. That will be part of us doing that more intensive check to make sure that you do actually qualify. If you don't, we'll just refund that. We'll probably say, I'm really sorry, we can't help you, and send you on your way. But if you do qualify, then we'll continue on with the rest of the process. So I want to thank everybody who's joined us here tonight. We did try to go through as many questions as possible. I know everyone always has so many more. I was texting with a Immigration New Zealand relationship manager today who told me that the immigration instructions are on the minister's desk waiting to be certified. So fingers crossed, we will have them by the end of this week, and we will be able to have a follow-up webinar that's got quite specific answers to some of the questions where we've had to say, this is what they've told us, but we don't know 100%. So thank you again for joining us. If you don't already follow our Facebook pages, we will be posting all the updates as soon as they become available to us, in case we can't organize another webinar quickly, because sometimes we have plans to watch Netflix because we're in lockdown and it's really boring. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. See ya. Good evening.